This is a crusade. This is a holy war against the deep state.
Where are the dictators? Where are the strong men?
Donald Trump is our instrument for retribution.
I'm going to fight for Christians. I'm going to fight for white people.
They have the Great Reset. We have the Great Awakening.
And why shouldn't I root for Russia? Because I am.
I want to see these people go through misery because of their grooming against our children.
After the assailant entered the home asking, "Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy?" Those are the very same words used by the mob when they stormed the United States Capitol.
I did nothing wrong.
Welcome to the Did Nothing Wrong podcast, where we cut through the noise and help you make sense of the chaotic information space around us. I'm Griff Somke.
My name is Jake Shields. My parents, had a big ranch, pretty much middle of nowhere. They're a little hippie-ish, so I kind of grew up snowboarding, rock climbing. I had two older brothers, so got beat up all the time by my brothers. Probably why I fight, trying to get payback still. When I first started fighting, it was a little tough because it was sport was pretty much unknown. We'd go fight in Indian reservations. No one paid attention. It was pretty brutal. Got paid my $200 or whatever, and and went on and fought again. It was a very hard time in my life when I was trying to support my daughter, go to college, and fight. It was just three very important things. I just didn't have enough time for it all, and it was why I had to make the decision to quit school. I've sacrificed a lot in life. I want to be the best so bad that I force myself day in, day out to go in there and do the repetitive training. I think fighting is a lot like life. If you want something to happen, you have to go out there and make it happen. My name is Jake Shields, and I am a fighter.
There is only one thing in the world worse than being talked about, and that is not being talked about. Those words were written by Irish author, poet, and playwright Oscar Wilde. It means that even if people are insulting you, when they talk about you, it's because you're important. If they don't talk about you, you don't matter at all to them. And in the attention economy, if you don't matter, you might as well not exist. Jake Shields is a former professional mixed martial arts fighter. Once his fighting career ended, Jake needed to do something to stay relevant and make people pay attention. So he became a semi-professional Twitter troll. He's also a great case study in just how far down this particular rabbit hole folks can go and what audience capture looks like. This is his permanent record.
Lawler looking to hand Shields his first loss since December 2004 when he was defeated by Akira Kikuchi in Japan. It's been a long time since Shields has tasted defeat.
Shields looks very uncomfortable in the center of the cage.
He does. He looks stiff and uncomfortable. Robbie looks very comfortable. I'd like him to flick that jab more and the hook more.
But you got to give Shields credit, trying to mix it up at least, the striking. Going for the guillotine.
He's going for the guillotine.
Oh, and he's got it deep. He's got it deep. Robbie's standing up the block, and that means he's got it deep.
Oh, Shields!
He's tapping.
He's tapping! He's tapping!
He tapped out Lawler. Jake Shields, once again, the jiu-jitsu master. What a win!
In 1993, it began with Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. In 2009, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu continues to reign.
And just like that, 12 straight victories for Jake Shields.
And all by submission. That is what jiu-jitsu is all about. That is what wrestling is all about. That's called going for the hole.
Jake was at one point a really great fighter. He main evented one of the biggest UFC cards ever, taking on Georges St-Pierre in front of a sold-out Skydome crowd in Toronto. He won championships all over the world, including with the Shuto promotion in Japan, Rumble on the Rock in Hawaii, and both Elite XC and Strikeforce in the US. He came from a wrestling background, having found success in both high school and college, and at one point qualifying for the US FILA Nationals and World Team Trials in both the junior and university men's division. He is also a two-time junior college All-American wrestler, placing fourth in the California JC State Tournament in the 177-pound weight class in 1997 and third in the 197-pound weight class a year later. So the guy could really wrestle. He joined former UFC champion Chuck Liddell's SLO Kickboxing Academy in 1999 and started fighting MMA soon afterwards.
Hello and welcome to MMA Crips Fighting Talk. On today's show, we'll be going 3 rounds of action featuring Jake Shields is a free agent, Melvin Gillard signs with World Series of Fighting, and Gina Carano set to meet with Dana White tonight. Joining me on today's show, all the way from Canada, Mr. Derek Love. Welcome to MMA Crips Fighting Talk, Derek.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
It's my pleasure, Derek. Okay, starting things out in round 1, and Jake Shields is a free agent. It was announced 2 days ago that top-ranked welterweight Jake Shields was cut from the UFC roster and is now a free agent. Now, we might as well start there, Derek. What do you make of the UFC cutting Jake Shields?
I think this is an excellent move by the UFC. Probably the most boring fighter on the roster. Hasn't really convincingly won a fight in years. Getting paid a good sum of money. And the guy hasn't improved in literally like 6 years. It's just trimming the fat, and he had to go.
So you're a big fan of it then, Derek?
I am. It sucks for Jake Shields as a fighter. Like, I know he's got family to support and everything.
Yeah.
But if you want to be in the UFC, you got to improve. You got to prove that you're the best. You can't be just winning decisions, boring split decisions by that means. Yeah, I thought, I didn't know they were going to do this, but I thought this would be the right move.
After a failed drug test and a couple of lackluster fights, Jake was let go from the UFC. Yahoo Sports had what turned out to be a very prescient article about it at the time, and I'm going to go ahead and quote it. The bottom line in all of this is to win, and, if possible, look exciting doing it. Make people want to see you fight. Because the minute the public becomes apathetic about you, you're gone the first time you give management an opening. Shields gave them an opening with a series of lackluster fights and then a loss. His pink slip should serve notice to the many 30-somethings in the UFC that it is no longer about what a fighter has done, but rather what he can still do that will have the biggest impact on his future. Jake evidently took this lesson to heart and decided that he wasn't going to let the public be apathetic about him again. After his long, successful fight career wound down, he opened a gym in Berkeley, California, and began teaching jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts. He teaches there to this day. Berkeley was the site of his radicalization, as it were. Ironic, right? A town known worldwide for left-wing activism was the site of Jake's turn to the far right. He was attending an event featuring a guy named Milo Yiannopoulos. Milo Yiannopoulos was, at the time, the editor of Breitbart.com, the right-wing news site, which we've covered extensively on this program. Milo was doing a speaking tour of college campuses, the purpose of which seems to have been to stir people up and generate protests, which could then be filmed and used to support the narrative that the left was against free speech. In that regard, it was quite successful.
Overnight mayhem on campus. The University of California, Berkeley erupting in flames as over 1,000 came out to protest an appearance by the self-described right-wing internet troll Milo Yiannopoulos.
We will not tolerate racism or sexism or hate crimes and violence. He's a fascist, and Berkeley did not welcome him.
At least 6 people were injured, including this Trump supporter who was pepper sprayed. The university canceling the speech.
Hey, Milo, we shot you down.
Riot police even retreating to the building for safety. You can hear them urging the crowds to leave.
I think we have a right to say that we don't want him here.
Jake did a lot of media around this time to talk about this event and the effect that seeing all the anti-fascists protesting in the street had on him. Here's Jake talking about the incident to Gavin McInnes, the founder of the Proud Boys.
When I first got into politics, I always hated politics, paid zero attention. I got into it because I stopped by the guy Milo Yiannopoulos, I didn't know who he was, but some gay dude DM'd me, probably trying to fuck. Cause so I brought, he goes, hey, come to this thing. So I brought a girl, because I know if I'm DMing some chick, I'm trying to fuck him. So I'm like, all right, this guy's probably trying to fuck, so I'm going to bring a girl with me. And we're out there eating dinner, you know. I don't know who this guy is. And then there's just like chaos on the streets. I walk out, some guy's getting his head smashed on the ground, stomped.
Some old dude.
Yeah, so I run over, start trying to fight them off, and they start calling me a Nazi. So I start dropping a few people. I don't know if I should say this or not, but I don't ever say, but fuck it. The first one runs up. They have masks on, so I couldn't tell. The first one runs up, and I go, boom. I fucking myself. I drop him. I didn't know it was a chick. I didn't realize it until I dropped her. So I didn't know. Next one comes up, throws him on the ground, chucks another one. As soon as they realized I could fight, they were the weakest. The men's were
a new
the
species.
men were as weak as the girls. They were just so weak. As a professional fighter, I just chucked him. All of a sudden, real quick, when the guy goes, he's not a Nazi. He's not a Nazi. I think I tweeted this part out. It went hella viral, like the talk of us kind of confusing the situation, talking them out. And I'm like, what the fuck's wrong with you guys? You're beating people up. You know, and I grabbed the guy, throw him in a store. Some Middle Eastern guys help pull me in, and then someone goes, knock the window out and get him. And someone goes, no, that's a minority-owned store. I'd never heard this shit. I'm like, wait, they're not going to knock the windows out because it's a minority store versus... This shit was all new to me. I didn't know this was going on at the time. I was just so confused. Some of them on camera. So we're a crew, so I wanted to get my crew and come back. Someone talked me out of it, luckily, because I would end up probably in prison with you. But I'm like, bro, if we get 5-6 of us, we can go out there and take the whole group out.
Absolutely. Yeah,
they just can't fight because they panic when you hit one of them because they see someone get dropped and they're like, they're not used to it. But we just stay there and start throwing.
Well, they're almost handpicked from the weakest people in society because who's going to be attracted to a thing where you can hide your face, go in, punch someone, and then run away? You're going to get the weakest people in humanity.
We literally put girls on the front line to fight.
Right.
There was a girl that rushed me with like a bat that I dropped because I didn't see someone run with a bat, so I swung and I'm like, oh shit, I just dropped a chick. I'm like, well, I got to start fighting now. And I just started throwing, but they all just scattered so quick. It was like, holy shit, they're so weak. A couple of them got dropped, and it was like 30 of them. And they had like weapons and shit. And I was able to defuse like 30 of them that quick. That's why I'm like, if I had 5 of my friends, we could take out like hundreds of these guys.
Maybe we could do with 50.
I wanted to go join your gang when you were fighting them, but thank God I didn't. I'd be like in prison probably.
You absolutely would.
That's when I first saw you doing that. I'm like, oh, this guy's cool. Most conservatives are fucking dorks. This guy's like actually cool.
That's what we were doing. We were cleaning up Antifa.
You were doing such a good service, and like you got demonized for that. It's crazy.
One of the most surprising places he popped up was on the short-lived Prog Dad TV program, hosted by a guy named Owen Linehan, who likes to present himself as a serious researcher, but spends most of his time attacking people on the left, using dubious graphs and charts about their associations with Antifa. Nobody besides the right really take him seriously, but he's good for their narrative, so they keep rolling him out every so often. At one point, he was doing what he later called a satire of progressives, in which he dubbed himself Progressive Dad, and proceeded to interview various people while playing this character.
Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Prog Dad Investigates. My guest this week is Jake Shields, an MMA fighter and a pioneer of what's known as American Jiu-Jitsu. Among his many achievements are impressive victories over the likes of Tyron Woodley and Robbie Lawler. So basically, my guest today is the personification of toxic masculinity. And what I'm going to try to do this week is I'm going to try and see if we can convince him to retire from fighting and take up a training position with Antifa. Welcome, Jake. It's great to have you here today.
Hey, how's it going? How you doing?
Now, at the time, it was shocking to see Jake Shields appearing on this guy's show, as it was pretty clear that Prog Dad was a crypto-fascist gimmick. And while a lot of the content has been scrubbed, the guy did an episode trying to normalize groypers, which regular listeners of this podcast will recognize as the term that Nick Fuentes fans use to refer to themselves. Seems that old Prog Dad felt they were getting a bad rap and an unfair shake, so he supposedly went to go interview some of them.
As a progressive and an advocate for displaced and marginalized people worldwide, I couldn't help but feel sympathy for these wretched people. I spent hours on Twitter listening to their heartbreaking tales and their wish to just be left alone to drink tea and be cozy. We laughed together, we cried together, and in the end, just as I felt a deep and unbreakable bond with them, they bestowed upon me the greatest honor I have ever received, my own Groyper avatar.
Seems like an odd choice of people to stick up for, but remember, Owen Linehan is a serious researcher, not an extremist. Said so himself. And he demonstrated this further by carrying water for former U.S. House of Representatives candidate from Wisconsin and truly vile anti-Semite Paul Nehlen.
Uhuru friends, and welcome to a very special episode of Progressive Dad TV Investigates. Now today we have a very special guest. We've none other than Paul Nehlen, the man who's going to be running against Speaker Ryan in the congressional primaries for the Republican Party later this year.
Yes, that Paul Nehlen. The same Paul Nehlen who posted a list of addresses and phone numbers of 81 people who criticized him on Twitter and asserted that 74 of them were Jewish. But that didn't bother Owen, at least not enough to not have him on the program. Take a listen.
I'm going to tell you my big problem with Paul Ryan, okay? And this is where I'm hoping that you can win my vote. I'm an American of Irish descent. I don't know if you have any Irish blood in you. So an American of Irish descent, as is Paul Ryan himself, very famously. He's also an aide. And there's millions of us out there. There's millions of aides in America. And my problem is that Paul Ryan has done absolutely nothing to stop bullying of aides and to in America. I mean, on Twitter, I'm regularly called a potato, NIGG, and a bog trotter. I want to know, if you get into Congress, what will you do to break up the stigma surrounding AIDS?
Well, I have to say, when I look at somebody or when I talk to them, I don't immediately, I really don't care what your background is. I don't gravitate towards people of German descent. In fact, I said the other day on another gentleman's, Nick Fuentes podcast, I didn't even know that Shapiro was Jewish. And because I don't pay attention to those things, I don't go out of my way to discern, or are you Irish, or are you Jewish, or are you, because it doesn't really matter to me. If you've got a good heart, that's what I judge. Now, if somebody's jamming their Jewishness in my face and causing problems for me, then I start noticing things. And now I can't stop noticing things. If I had Irish people who were coming at me all the time and giving me grief about, for whatever reason, they're bog trotting. You
call it a bog trotter.
Yeah. Then I guess I might have a different opinion about that. But there's really just one race that is seemingly wanting to attack me when I want to stop big trade deals or bad tax proposals or schemes or diversity programs. The Irish aren't coming after me. Germans aren't coming after me. The Brits aren't coming after me. The Jews are coming after me. A specific group of them. It just so happens that I notice this about them because they make me notice it.
So I think it's pretty clear what old Prog Dad was up to here. Like I said, it was shocking to me at the time to see Jake Shields on the guy's show. Kind of like, doesn't he know what this guy does? That, in retrospect, was not one of my better takes. Jake seems to have realized that controversy was his ticket to relevance, and so he decided to lean all the way in. One way that he decided to try for some clicks was to offer to beat up trans athletes. Jake issued a challenge to fight 10 in a row, with no rest or break. Here he is on Inside Fighting, explaining his reasoning.
Now, everyone's always talking about how you're trying to fight 10 transsexuals at once. Is it at once, or is it back to back to back?
Back to back. I'm not gonna get jumped by 10 trans dudes. It's a
right.
man, I get confused.
But
I'm good on that. One at a time, but no rest between though. Fight one, next one.
And you think you beat all 10, no problem?
Yes, that's why I put
back to back.
None of them will accept it, so I've offered $200K of my own money to try to make it happen. Still no acceptors. So.
There was one trans athlete who accepted.
It was a fake accept. As soon as I contacted them, there was like, oh, never mind. I don't want to fight you. I actually want to fight someone else on the same card as you. It's not as good as you. So they're trying to use my name to get relevant.
So how close is this to happening? Is it really going to happen where you're going to line up?
I'm down to do it, but there's no takers. So as soon as we can find 10 of them that'll do it, I can do it.
So
you would think, the 10 toughest trans men would want to fight me. The 10 toughest trans women are fighting women. So it's kind of weird if they're real women are fighting them. Why, if they're real men, you think they'd fight me? 10 of them.
So as of right now, there's no takers.
0 takers.
But as soon as someone lines up 10, and is there a point, just for the fans and the viewers who don't know, what's the point you're trying to prove in doing
I
this?
was kind of pointing out the hypocrisy of women, of trans women going and beating up women, saying they're real women. So if they're real women, then why can't I literally fight the 10 toughest trans men in the world, and I'll smoke them all? And the fact that none of them will step up and fight me kind of proves my point.
So you don't believe that transgenders should be competing in?
No, I don't.
They should compete in their biological.
Exactly, and the fact that none of them will fight me kind of proves my point, and then all the trans women want to fight women.
That got some clicks, but fame is fleeting for right-wing pundits. Jake was going to have to come up with something more if he wanted to keep his newfound influencer gig. Luckily for him, events were about to unfold that soon would launch him into the top tier of right-wing influencers.
We often talk of captive audiences, regarding the performer as hypnotizing the viewers. But just as often, it's the viewers hypnotizing the performer. This disease, of which Perry is but one victim of many, is known as audience capture, and it is essential to understanding influencers in particular and the online ecosystem in general. Audience capture is an irresistible force in the world of influencing, because it's not just a conscious process but also an unconscious one. While it may ostensibly appear to be a simple case of influencers making a business decision to create more of the content they believe audiences want, and then being incentivized by engagement numbers to remain in this niche forever, it's actually deeper than that. It involves the gradual and unwitting replacement of a person's identity with one custom-made for the audience.
Jake was ripe for this, and the milieu he picked to influence was among the most toxic. People who dive into this content can get down bad really quickly, and we've seen so many examples over the years. People like David DePape, who you may remember as the gentleman who broke into Nancy Pelosi's house and assaulted her husband. And when you're being incentivized financially and socially to keep going, keep posting, keep getting more and more provocative, to keep getting that sweet, sweet engagement, who knows how fast someone can end up in a really bad place.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. At dawn local time, Hamas militants launched an unprecedented and large-scale surprise attack targeting dozens of locations in Israel. Right now, Israeli authorities say at least 200 people in Israel have been killed. The Gaza Health Ministry says 232 Palestinians are dead.
October 7th, 2023. It's one of those dates where you can safely say that everything changed. Hamas's attack on Israel and the war that followed created ripple effects that are still being felt and will resonate throughout the world for years to come. One of the more disgusting ripple effects was racists and anti-Semites jumping on the Palestinian cause as a way to push their vile propaganda. People like Nick Fuentes, Jackson Hinkle, Stu Peters, and many more realized that there was a brand new audience ripe for the picking, so they set out to see how much of that audience they could score. Turns out it was quite a lot. Now, Jake started tweeting way more than he usually did, and quite a bit of the content was very anti-Israel, which quickly evolved into anti-Jewish sentiment. Here's an example from February 6th, which has been archived, and it's still up at the time of this recording. Jake is quoting the tweet of a user named Act17David, and he says, quote, "The 5 pillars of Judaism. Number 1, lying. Number 2, lying. Number 3, rape. Number 4, lying. Number 5, lying." Unquote. And here's one from Tuesday, April 23rd, where he's responding to user Christ_Gnosis. He says, quote, "Jews win because they play dirty. Time we turn their own tactics against them." Unquote. He got a positive response for that from old school British racist Nick Griffin for that one, which I'm sure he was pretty thrilled about if he knows who Nick Griffin is. Also, from March 26th, replying to a tweet about how Jews are overrepresented in the White House from Dr. Anastasia Maria Lupus, a notorious Danish anti-Semite, he said, quote, "If Biden says equity is the most important issue for his presidency, why is his cabinet mostly all Jews and black women? If he wants to truly be equitable, he will need to fire most of the Jews and black women," unquote. He also made reference to dubious crime statistics and the debunked Pizzagate conspiracy theory. According to Social Blade, a website that monitors social media trends, in the weeks before October 7th, Jake would usually gain about 1,000 followers a week. That's pretty good and very typical for an account like his. In the immediate aftermath, however, he gained 10,000 new followers. And from October 31st till November 8th, he gained 33,000 new followers. Obviously, this kind of vile anti-Semitism gets clicks, and it seems to assure him a place in the right-wing spotlight for years to come. Jake's latest attention grab has come in the form of embracing Nick Fuentes and bemoaning the fact that Nick isn't allowed on Twitter anymore to anyone who will listen.
That they're not aware of that, but he's still there.
Well, Nick's one because I believe the lie that he was a racist too. But then I go and start watching his videos during October 7th, and I think he does the best job of any pundit breaking down what's happening. He's clear, precise. He does kind of joke around a lot, which I think you can take little clips and make him look racist because he'll say semi-racist things occasionally.
You need to be entertaining to be
engaging. So once you watch him, you get that. It's his personality.
Right. But when you flip it out of context, that's how you think.
I got connected with him through a black guy because I thought he was like racist. You know.
So did I.
Talking to this black guy.
Yeah, the black guy, the Mexican guy told me about
it. He's like, no, he's not. And he's like, no, you got to introduce you and stuff. And I'm like, all right. So
was it Bryson Gray?
No, but I know Bryson too.
Okay.
So, but it's interesting because the guy's like, no, this guy's not a racist. And then I'm like, all right, I'll watch a couple of his clips and talk to him and stuff. And I'm like, oh man, he's not really. He'll say things that might be true. Yeah, you can look at statistics, with crime and stuff. Yeah, you can. Is it racist if it's true?
Call me an anti-Semite or misogynist. Yeah. Avoid this person.
So you became toxic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just from being around, partially from being around.
Nick was a big one. Yeah. I mean, I was platforming him on YouTube. That was a big no-no. They played our stream in the Senate.
It's crazy, like how toxic they made him. I even had to think about it for a second. Like, oh, is it smart for me to go interact with this guy? And I'm like, wait, I'm being a coward if I'm not going to go fucking interact with him because I'm told not to. That crossed my head because I'm thinking like, I didn't meet up with him. Someone gave me his number. And I was going through Chicago, and I'm thinking like, and it went back to my head like, oh, would it be dumb to meet up with him? Like, wait, I'm being a fucking coward even thinking that. But that just shows you how they've made him toxic to make me scared to collaborate with him.
Here's Jake talking to one of Nick's best friends and fellow anti-Semite Sneeko about the dancing Israelis conspiracy theory.
Or people that's going to be able to start speaking their mind.
I think too many people are waking up too fast. Like the limits of what you're allowed to speak about now, like me joking about how rabbis are crawling out of tunnels, like you would not be able to say that 6 months ago. It's incredible, like what we're able to do. And it's just, I want to go full force. That's why I said that thing about Zuckerberg, because that's going to be like the biggest platform to really speak about this.
Yeah.
And the more they keep trying to suppress it, the more people are going to want to talk about it.
I think they're having a hard time suppressing now, you're right. But but before they were always made people so demonetized. Like what they did to Nick, they had me kind of fucking believing it. And it's like, I had to go watch the clips myself. But then also, like I said, you got to think about it like, oh, is he toxic? Is it smart if I go do anything with him or talk with him? So they made a guy so toxic that it makes people that even aren't scared to think about it twice.
Right.
Like even you, look what they did to you.
Yeah.
Like it probably cost you a lot of money. I imagine you made a lot of fucking,
they deleted my whole
millions of dollars.
They kept the money, when they banned me, they kept the money that they owed me. They still owe me hundreds of thousands of dollars, yeah.
That can't be legal, can it?
I mean, I'm still fighting. It's been over a year and a half. I have a court case.
Yeah. It wasn't... Ryan Dawson, I think, was one of the first people
years ago,
from YouTube.
Like 2006. You know Ryan Dawson, right?
Yeah, not well, but I know him. Yeah, and then it's interesting because Fahrenheit 9/11. I think Harvey Weinstein, produced that. It was a film with 9/11 showing all the Saudi Arabia connections.
Yeah.
But Dawson goes and makes one showing the Israeli connections.
You get wiped.
The one I think wins awards, and this one goes and gets banned from YouTube. It just shows you. So what's the difference? Why can you show one country's connections and not the other?
Because one conspiracy is they call it anti-Semitic, but
yeah,
I mean they push a narrative so long that Muslims were terrorists. But if you say that there's a group of Zionists that are doing something, then that's anti-Semitic.
It's so much crazy shit when you start going down these rabbit holes, things you never knew. Like the 9/11 connections. I'm not saying they did or didn't do it, but like. People can Google like dancing Israelis. That's just the start of the rabbit. That's just the start of the rabbit hole. It goes way deeper than that.
I can't believe you just said that. Yeah, like that'll wake you up.
This theory posits that Israeli intelligence agents were dancing in the streets of New York as the Twin Towers fell on 9/11. This has been debunked and debunked again, including by us on episode 32, entitled Nick Fuentes' Permanent Record. Have a listen.
It's not like he's the first person that's gone there with that conspiracy theory. It's one that's been pushed since 9/11 happened, and it is all the same anti-Semitism that we've come across again and again. This is the ADL, and it's anti-Semitic conspiracies about 9/11 endured 20 years later. There's quite a bit in here. They list some of the popular themes that are put out there. related to anti-Semitic 9/11 conspiracy theories. And I'll just list off some of these. The first is the Mossad, Israeli intelligence, was behind the attacks. And they say that variations of this theory have circulated since 2001 and assert that the Mossad, the Israeli intelligence agency, was behind 9/11 attacks. The most common proof, quote unquote, cited is the false claim that 5 Israeli Mossad agents were arrested on 9/11 by police who observed them filming and celebrating the attack. This narrative of the dancing Israelis is a recurring element of many conspiracy theories.
And Fuentes has tweeted that.
Of course. Of course.
Of course, Nick himself is thrilled about all of this.
Like, this year is different. Everyone who's in the know knows what I'm talking about. You go on TikTok and you see a TikTok that says Hitler was the chosen one, and it has 1 million likes. Like, you go on TikTok these days and there'll be a TikTok that says, like, Hitler tried to save the world, and all the comments are like, rest in peace. And it's like 1 billion likes. And, you know, guys like Zerka are blowing up saying, I don't like Aiden Ross, he's Jewish. And like Fresh and Fit and Pearl and Sneeko and Ban the ADL and Keith Woods and Jake Shields and Candace. All of it. It's like this whole year, it's like the third eye opened up.
He's convinced that this has been such a great year for anti-Semitism. Make no mistake, Nick Fuentes is absolutely loving where all this is going. And we saw it with Kanye that Nick loves hanging out with famous people. He went out to dinner with Jake, and he's done several clips now talking about various aspects of that, like how Jake's a vegan.
I got dinner with Jake Shields. He's in town, and he tells me he's a vegetarian. I'm like, oh, we'll go to a fish restaurant. I didn't know vegetarians don't eat fish. I'm like, damn it. Well, I would have went to like a steakhouse or, you know, somewhere I could get a burger. But I go to some stupid fish restaurant because I'm me, an idiot. I'm like, oh, vegetarian. I'm thinking like Good Friday rules, right? I'm like, well, he can eat fish. He don't eat fish. He got a Caesar salad and pasta. I'm like, well, if I'd known that, we would have went somewhere else. But I wasn't thinking. So, yeah, chicken sandwich sounds good. I'd have stupid fish. And, you know, it was good. I mean, the fish and chips was good, but I wouldn't be my first pick.
And how Nick needs to buy some better clothes if he's going to hang out with people like Jake.
Look, I need to get new clothes. That's the thing. I mean, I don't really have a ton of clothes. And it was like a nice restaurant. I didn't have anything like clean. I haven't done laundry in a minute. And, so that's just, I didn't know we were going to be taking a picture. So I was like, I just need something that's not like a hoodie. And, yeah. The thing is, I hate shopping. Okay. I know, I gotta have cool clothes and whatever. But I hate shopping. I hate going to clothes store and shopping and trying stuff on and seeing how it fits. And I hate that whole process. So I never go shopping. That's why I've been wearing this hoodie for like 100 years on this show.
And how Jake is the perfect guy to lead the white power movement.
We need to get back to white pride. We need white people to feel strong, feel powerful, feel good about themselves. I'm probably not the guy to do that because I'm not like, we need guys like Jake Shields, or Shanks. Those guys are like a picture of like white power, Me, I'm like, I guess I'm pretty nerdy too, but anyway.
You can practically see the stars in his eyes. Yeah, it's really weird stuff, and you can draw your own conclusions about what exactly Nick's feelings are towards Jake. But one thing is very clear, and it's that he is definitely glad to have Jake on board as an ally. People take the red pill for all sorts of reasons. One question that comes up on this podcast a lot is why? What causes people to go down this road? We've asked a lot of our guests this question, and one thing I've learned is that there's no consistent answer. Some people do it because their lives stopped making sense, and they're looking for an answer as to why. Some people do it to breathe new life into a flagging career. There are probably as many reasons as there are people who chose this path. However, the beliefs themselves are remarkably consistent. The only thing that really changes are the circumstances. But once you start, all the roads lead to the same place. Thanks for listening to the Did Nothing Wrong podcast. If you want to hear more, you can find us on the web at didnothingwrongpod.com. Please make sure you subscribe to get our content straight into your inbox. You can also follow us on Twitter at GrizaBJJ, GRZABJJ, as well as DNWPod. We're extremely grateful for paid subscriptions and donations that allow us to keep doing this important work. Thanks, and remember, everyone mentioned did nothing wrong.